Many people started the year thinking it was going to be the perfect year, that for the year 2020, we would have 2020 vision for a positive outlook on life. But so far, this year has proven to be one that couldn't be planned or mapped out to accomplish any of our goals the way we wanted to. Between this pandemic, riots, natural disasters, and a lot of political debate, the country's circumstances beg the question of how the voters' motivation to vote has been affected. With voting being the most fundamental way that individuals can participate in government, it's interesting to know that voter turnout is never 100%. Much research revolves around the understanding of why not, but it could be enlightening to understand how this year's many tides of change have impacted people's motivation to vote.
Really just because I think that, it's just extremely critical. Our country is so divided, essentially, it's just, again, I think that there's just dramatic changes. I think that we could continue on. I think that our economy is probably the best, or was the best that it has been in a really, really long time. I focus on what I think the administration is doing as a whole, across the board, and I just believe in certain, ideals and certain values that I think are important, that I think if we shift gears or either from one way to the other, it can dramatically change, I guess, the course of how our country is going. So I think that is motivating, and that gets me out here to want to make sure that I get my vote in.
It's probably increased my motivation because I don't agree with a lot of what's going on at this point. Kind of in the medical field, I have a pretty good idea of what's going on, and so some of it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, to me, basically, it has a lot to do with the direction of which the nation's going to go. And so it became very, very important to me because of my family, my kids, and that kind of stuff, and where I see the nation going.
So one of the really great things that I enjoyed about the mail-in ballots was I actually had an opportunity to Google every person on the ballot and look for myself. What is their policy stance? What is their record? Like, what have they actually done while they've held the position that they asked the public for? And how did they serve? And what is their opponent doing right now, already right now in serving? My motivation is definitely a lot higher. Again, just being able to see people in office. Talk is cheap, right? And we actually got to see people put that talk into action, or we got to see the ones who didn't. And what was the talk that they put up to front that, right? And so my motivation was a lot higher, and then the opportunity to take time to look at the opponents and their stances on the policy. And now I got to align my vote with the policymakers, with those who I believe are more in line with my values.
With voter turnout predicted to be greater in 2020 compared to the 2016 presidential election, and despite this year being far from perfect, we can only hope that whichever candidate wins can lead the country onward to a more positive future as we continue to face uncertain and interesting times. Julianne Docena, Las Vegas, Nevada. We live in interesting times.